Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode number 3 of the Sim Racing in Focus podcast. If you've been with us since the start, thank you for tuning back in once again. If you're new around here, hopefully you'll subscribe and stick about and enjoy the show. We talk about sim racing, as the name suggests, but in particular, the Australian iRacing scene. I'm your host, Dean Reddit. I'm a owner and editor at a small startup webpage known as simracinginfocus.blog, where we bring you some blog-style content and also now this podcast. On today's show, we're going to get through our normal weekly drive-bys, look at a few race recaps, a few new leagues kicking off this week. We'll have results from V8 Veterans and East Coast V8 Supercars as usual. In conjunction with that will also be the first qualification race from the Logitech G Pro Invitational Series, and also the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup got underway on the weekend as well. After all that, we'll cover a little bit of news, and we'll also get a chance to talk to a couple of league admin from the Premier Endurance GT3 League. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, we're going to kick off this week with the first round of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup. If you're a little bit like me, you didn't know this one was coming up so soon after the field just got announced last week. But round 1 went to Daytona International Raceway, so the Roval circuit. And if you haven't had enough of Daytona already, I'm sure the guys that were participating in this event have now. Daytona has been featured quite heavily on iRacing this month. Obviously, there's the Raw before the 24, then there was the 24-hour iRacing special event, and then these guys are now racing the Premier Road Racing Series for iRacing worldwide there as well. So no doubt they are probably turning hundreds, if not thousands of laps across all those 3 formats, which a lot of them probably did do. So there was 2 races as normal with the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup. It's a sprint race for the first race, which was just 8 laps, and then it was a 16-lap main race. We're tracking the Aussie drivers and just the race results really from this series. Last year's champion Jordan Caruso, who's also an Australian, he qualified in P14 there to start the sprint race, and we also had Cooper Webster qualifying in P22. So just sort of middle of the pack there for the 2 guys. Pretty safe start, I suppose, for both of them to the season. The sprint race being 8 laps was quite chaotic. Jordan managed to keep it out of trouble there, and he brought it home in P13. So not a huge shift forward. The top 20 scored points in these races, though, and there's 40 or 45 cars, so it's quite crucial to keep plugging away and staying out of trouble. Cooper Webster, however, managed to get caught up in a rather large midfield incident there, and he would DNF or finish way out of the points. So unfortunate for Cooper there, but Jordan got his season off to a reasonable start. Luke McEwen won on debut, I believe, in that race from Sebastian Job and Gustavo Ariel. Race number 2, the main race. Again, there was a little bit of drama unfold in this one. The 2 Aussies would come in basically nose to tail, with Cooper Webster coming home in P18 and Jordan Caruso falling down to P19 after running up towards, I think he was about 12th or 11th in the race. Just a little spin on the infield there, and he dropped way down, so he still did a good job to recover to get inside the points there. I think the main talking point from this race was just the sheer amount of Red Bull cars that were on the grid, or Red Bull affiliated cars. There was Oracle Red Bull Racing Esports, which is the team that Cooper does race for. they were linked up with Max Verstappen Esports, and then there was Team Redline, who were also sponsored by Red Bull. So there was about 8 or 10 cars on the grid out of the 40 that were all nursing similar, if not almost identical, Red Bull liveries. And Daytona being a predominantly an oval or roval, as most of you would know, they just worked together. And at times it was actually quite, it was impressive, but it was also just, for the people that were just in between them by themselves, they just really got muscled out of the way. So interesting tactics. But it was effective on that circuit. Not sure how it'll go on other circuits going forward, but that's going to be probably a big talking point from round one, and probably something that we'll see how that story evolves, because I believe there was some talk about them doing similar tactics inside the 24-hour race. So, 3 teams lining it all up there, and Sebastian Joel for Oracle Red Bull Racing Esports got the win in the second race from Diogo Pinto and Chris Lullum. So, interesting viewing, and something to keep an eye on there moving forward. We'll jump on now to the Logitech G Pro Invitational Series, where we had round one of the qualifying series. This was about a 49-lap race around Road Atlanta. 95 Sim Sports Griffin Gardner put it on pole position to start the race. Griffin would lead, I think it was about 39 laps of this race, so really did all the heavy lifting. But, having a former champion in there, coming out, starting on P2, Jared Filsell just bided his time very well at that track, and was able to save up the fuel that would net him an overcut in the end. So it's good to see overcut still effective these days, but he did it to perfection, got out with about, maybe a second on Griffin Gardner. He'd obviously hold on for the last 10 laps, although it was close. Griffin come right back. I think it was 2/10 the finishing margin there in the end, back to Griffin, and then it wouldn't have been much different back to Job Stewart from Altus Esports, who was looking quite racy then. So those 3 really, really controlled that race, and it was 6 seconds back towards the end of the race there to Forzan Nabi. Not a whole lot of other information coming out of the race. A few little broadcast issues, but we picked up what we could. But that's the first race, solid there. So the boys turning in some good results. I did see that Richard Hamstead from Trans-Tasman Racing was running pretty solid most of the race. Picked up a bit of a pit lane, I think, penalty there. He's a big name that's fallen down as a result of that pit lane, one that you would probably expect to see come the start of round one for the Logitech G Pro Invitational. So, he's got a bit to do, but I'm sure he'll get some recovery done in the next couple of rounds, but see whether he can get all the way back. Moving on to the East Coast, they also went to Road Atlanta. So we see the series deviate from the iRacing official calendar for the first time here, mainly to match up with the Logitech G Pro Invitational round, I'm assuming. As it has been pretty much all season, James Scott claimed pole position for the race before he would go on and secure another win by 3 or 4 seconds over his teammate Dylan Rudd and Jordan Ross from Synergy Sim Racing. So, the East Coast, James Scott has got a stranglehold. That's 5 from 5 races, I believe. So we're through 4 rounds, but 5 races. So really controlling that series. Dylan Rudd would probably be thereabouts in second spot, and first time Jordan Ross, we're seeing him with his best performance of the season so far. That's a wrap on East Coast. The V8 veterans were at Sonoma. Scotty Gamble once again, I think he goes back to back on pole positions. This was actually a cracker of a race. A really good battle up front. Many cars there for a long part of the race before we ended up with a final battle pack of about 4 or 5 cars, and
and they were interchanging positions right up to the end of the race. But Scotty Gamble would manage to fight. He didn't go from start to finish. He did fall down a little bit, but he managed to recover and claim the race victory over Michael Taliancic from Altus Esports Australia and also Darren Lobb from DPR. So another podium there for Darren, and we see Michael back onto the podium again for V8 Veterans. So that's how round number 7 of the V8 Veterans finished. The results seen a return to the top of the table for Michael Taliancic. He holds a slender 5-point lead over Cam Ladder, and it's about a further 80 points back to Matt van der Kraan in P number 3. So good, tight season unfolding here for the V8 Veterans. That is going to wrap up our races from iRacing week number 8. And now it's time for a little bit of news. Okay, not a whole lot of news going on this week. Couple of minor updates. We touched on the Fanatec situation last week regarding their pre-order products and the delays that are coming out of there. Not a whole lot of new information going on there, but I did see that Will from Boosted Media is planning on sit down and a catch up with members of Fanatec. So hopefully they'll be able to provide some good information regarding where their products are at and whether those people that have paid for the pre-order are going to get their products anytime soon. I'd suggest that it is still relatively unknown. I'm speculating, but as far as PR might be concerned, I don't think they'll be. I think you can expect that they will be pointing the fingers at Sony and unable to update anyone any further until Sony gets them the right licensing. And maybe that well is the case, that it's Sony holding it up. You can certainly hear stories about developers and stuff trying to get updates through, and it's a long process with both Sony and Microsoft. So it might well be the case, but unfortunately it doesn't mean the consumers are getting what they paid for. Unfortunate again, but it's something we've seen quite a lot with sim racing products, unfortunately. I know I had my own personal experience where I was not a Fanatec product, and another distributor waiting up to 9 months. So yeah, I certainly don't think that's going to be the case for the Fanatec consumers, but it's something we just see all too often. So an interesting thing to look into there at some point, I'd imagine. We got an update again on Le Mans Ultimate. So this is back to episode 1 where we talked briefly about motorsport games and how they had a rather big fall from grace over 2023 and certainly early 2024. But there's at least some positive information coming out about a title release going into, we're only a couple of weeks away. Sorry, they're talking mid-February. So look, like once again, looks okay, and there was a little bit more footage in this update than just the Toyota around Le Mans. So it's building up. It's one to keep an eye on if there's any WEC fans out there, or you're just looking for a general break from iRacing or something like that. Yeah, it could be worth a gander, but once again, I'd definitely be waiting to see what this is like come release day, not pre-ordering this one. It's just, it's just cautious. Yeah, caution really. Hopefully they've stabilized things there and that's going to be okay, that product. Wouldn't be a bad little change up from iRacing there, that one. Some other major talking points from the week's probably been all the reviews that are now flowing out from the SimMagic GT Neo. I'm rather pleased to see them because I do actually have a pre-order on these. So seeing those drop
it's good because you're reassured that there's a product there at least, and we're not waiting for any license signed off or anything like that. So that's looking good. Super excited for that. I just seen a few Aussie distributors, sim rigs, talking about maybe first week in March. So I know definitely when we pre-ordered, they were talking February, but I think probably first week in March is probably realistic. It looks like that where we are situated on the world, we're going to get things last compared to everyone else. So yay for being Australian. That's what we get. We're the last in line or furthest away. So yeah, but nevertheless, that's going to be a really good product, I think. And certainly for the price point, it's one to look at if you are in the market for a GT3 or a GT3 rim, or are you looking at a rim that can be, it's compatible with a lot of different bases. So yeah, very excited by that. So, yeah, not a whole lot of news this week, just more updates on some of the stuff that we've already talked about. So we'll look into news for next week and whether we can get anything more in depth. We are a sim racing podcast, but if you're in Australia and you obviously we cover a lot of V8 supercars on the podcast. There's a lot happening in the real world V8 supercars, which doesn't bode well for the 2024 season. So we might try and cover that if there's not a whole lot of news as far as sim racing is concerned next week. Okay, that'll do our weekly drive-bys for this week. It's time now that we dive into this week's interview. On the show tonight, we've got two guys that are at the head of the Premier Endurance League, which is a relatively new league to GT cars in Australia. It's probably been going a bit over 12 months now, but it started out with the GT3 league. The guys have built it into a GT4 league now as well. And they've had an interesting venture into league ownership. So this one's an interesting one for people out there that might be considering what it's like to run a league. And certainly when we get into the conversation with Jimmy Middleton and Rick Provenzale, you can soon work out how dedicated you need to be to run a well-structured league. And these guys are, relentless in their approach and also really pragmatic in the way that they are looking to move an iRacing league into uncharted territory. So this is an interesting one. We're deviating away from the V8 supercar this week and into some GT stuff. So hopefully you'll enjoy this one and get a good perspective on what it's like to run an iRacing league. Okay, on tonight's episode of the Sim Racing in Focus podcast, we're changing things up a little bit, moving on from the V8 supercar and moving into the GT3 series, which is fast approaching. We've got two people here from the Premier Endurance League tonight to come on to discuss all things league admin. Our first guest, Ricky Provenzale, aka John Rick, aka Sticky Rick, aka Sticky Ricky. Hey, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good, thanks, mate. Good. Thank you for the introduction.
Yeah, I know. Well, I can't claim it. That one may have come from a guest comment. A fan of the podcast, Jacob back at Lost Hughes. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that guy.
I could probably guess who. But that's right.
And we've also got Jimmy Middleton as well. So Jimmy, you must be the pretty face behind this whole league.
Yeah, I am. I don't put my picture up because it'll put Rick to shame and make him feel insecure. So just on, and Packett's actually forgot one. Rick coined himself a new nickname on the weekend, which is Punt and Run Provenzale.
Wow. Wow, things have escalated.
Yeah, it started. It started early.
Probably need to have a chat with Leith about that one.
Yeah,
And myself, but
I'm sure he's got plenty to say.
Yeah, I was going to call you Slim Jim, but yeah, after you're driving on the weekend, Ricky, reckons it's not an appropriate name for you.
Just made that Merc as wide as I could.
All right. Well, look, tonight, hopefully, what we're going to try and get from you guys is obviously a little bit of insight into the Premier Endurance League and I guess how it's evolved really early on. What would it be? Maybe 12 to 18 months old now, Premier Endurance League?
Yeah, mate. Rick might correct me here, but we actually raced together in another league, and that's where we sort of met each other, and then that turned into let's do the Spa 24 race together. And I mean, hopefully he's put me on mute for a minute, but he's pretty quick behind the wheel, and I'm not quite at the same level as he is with it. And I said, I don't want to be holding you boys up. No, don't worry about that. So we sort of got through the 24-hour, and afterwards said it'd be bloody good if there was like an endurance league in Australia, because there wasn't much going. And I mean, all the official races, as you know, are about 40 minutes at the best. So you get the odd, the 3 hour on the Saturday nights and whatnot. But we wanted something a bit more regular and single driver sort of focused. So that's sort of where it all started.
Okay, so it's just born out of a random team event that you guys knew. So Rick, you and Jimmy obviously knew each other prior to the league starting then?
Yeah. There are a number of contributing factors early on as to how it came to be and why we ended up doing what we've done. We'd be here forever to go through them all, but yeah, we just seen a bit of a gap that we felt that was lacking and needed to be filled. Some of the extended type endurance races, as you know, can be difficult to be able to host and also to pay for. Let's cut to the point here. It's very expensive, that type of stuff. So we sought out something that we thought would be a good compromise and would somewhat replicate what people would encounter when they would go into these other types of races, which was normally at the time the fashion was you'd do a double stint.
Yep.
Tires and fuel and everything like that, and away you went. Tires were the reason why we did the double. Of those days, you change them every second round. So we thought, well, that sounds great. And then you bring in the reduced fuel limit, a few other little factors, as well as the safety car, and you got yourself a pretty good formula. And it's obviously seemed to work quite well. Everyone enjoys it. Jimmy and myself have worked well together and formed a great partnership that seems to be somewhat balanced. And it's been great fun. Up until this point, we've been extremely busy and we've been enjoying ourselves the whole way through. It's all gone so quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's break it down. So what I'm hoping to do in this episode is we'll go right back to the beginning and just sort of have a bit of back and forth, because what I'd like these episodes to be is also, if there's somebody out there that's listening in that has league desire to start a league, that they might actually be able to get or have some learnings from you guys along the way, that what you've encountered. And then we'll obviously build up to the launch of the GT3 season, which will be commencing on the weekend following this podcast when this one gets released. You've already gone out with the GT4 series, but we won't jump into that just yet. We'll cover that later on. So I think happy for you guys to both answer, and I'll throw it off to one at a time with these questions. But if we jump right back to the first season, give us some insight about the planning and the format of that first season, and how you sort of strategy. You briefly just touched on it before about how you wanted the series to replicate a double stint, and you had all tyres and fuel in mind. Was there much more else to it in that first season, or does that sum it up quite well?
There was actually, I'd put failure at the start.
Okay.
Because it wasn't just, we didn't just come in and have a successful first season straight off the bat. We initially wanted to do like a big ticket item, and we spent it was a couple of months, wasn't it, planning to do a 10-hour event at Suzuka, and we were going to put big cash prizes and get a broadcast and the race, all the fruit, and we had very little take up on it, and we were offering $1,000 for first place, and
wow,
thought I could not see us not being able to get the cars we needed for it, and there was just next to nobody interested. And I think a lot of that was probably just lack of, no one knew who we were. We were asking a bit per car entry, but I think that maybe sort of turned them away, handing over cash to a couple of blokes who have got nothing, have done nothing in that space leading up to it. And in the end, we sort of trimmed it back and thought, well, we can't, we're not getting the buy-in for a 10-hour. So we sort of thought, well, we'll just shorten it, and we did it. We ended up doing a 2-hour. And what did we have? I reckon it was about 12 cars on the grid for that first one.
From memory, I think we were probably about 15.
15?
15 guys for a bit of a test run.
Still had it race controlled, but that was, it was pretty much after that we got 15 on that one. And then did we go to Brands for the second race?
Yeah.
And I reckon it went up to about 20, 22 or 25 in that race, and it sort of grew from there. But it took us, I think we did
Spa between that as well.
we did Spa as well.
Yeah.
We did 3 or 4 races and sort of got a bit of a following, and then went into the season, and so started out with about 30. So
so these were like standalone races, were they? More so
they were, yeah.
Still following that sort of 2-hour race, monthly race, month in between races.
That's it. It might have been a little bit shorter between events back then, but and then I think we launched the sort of the back half of. I'm getting lost in the years now. I think it was 2022.
Yeah, when we set out initially to do what we wanted to do, it was plain and simple. It was naivety and lack of information. We certainly hadn't structured ourselves as much as what we needed to, and got ourselves educated in all the right areas. After we did flop, a number of things change, and one of them was the formalization, really, in regards to what's going on for our promotional type material, the admin side, rules, things like that. We realized that we needed to lift it up a level, and we decided we were going to lift it up as high as we could, aiming at the particular type of drivers that we wanted into the category. Again, obviously having a 3.5, or at that time it was a 3,000 IR cap. A lot of this is built around, that sort of person's ability. So a lot of things changed. We realized again that we really needed to change a few things, and we both spent a lot of time picking out the things that we felt where everyone else had failed. And we tried to work out why, what was behind it, why didn't it work, and eventually, excuse me, go on.
I was just going to say, because it's an interesting point, because you see a lot of leagues come in and their idea might be good, whether it's we talk about obviously the V8 supercar in Australia is quite well covered in terms of league racing, but you have,
I've heard it mentioned in other conversations, other podcasts, why can't we establish a series with a different class here that has the same attraction to everyone like the V8 supercar does? And, listening to you guys talk about how you had to have those failures in the beginning is exactly what I'm trying to get out of you guys in terms of, this is the learnings that people that are looking to start a league need to know about, because you see a lot come in with a lot of them can, like I said before, can be great ideas, and then they go straight into a 12-week season. They might want to charge $10-20 up front, and they just get no take up on the league, and then all of a sudden, before they've even really run a season, the league's gone off their iRacing.
There's a number of contributing factors that we found amongst the research that we had done, and we're not willing to go into every little bit how our framework is set up, but it is extensive. It is far beyond what people would initially think.
Yep.
And again, our goals are probably a little bit higher than what we normally see from some of the average guys, just wanting to get something together, domestically, have a bit of fun, whatever. So that's something that has to be factored in. But we noticed that there was a number of things that can bring things apart. We all know generally what the main ones are, generally issues in regards to social media, types of things, people conflicting with each other, whatever it is, admin collapsing, internal politics, whatever's going on there, particularly for whatever reason, and probably somewhat related to that at times is the financial side of things.
I was just about to say, you're leaving out the big one, and that's the finance.
It's all about, sorry, go on, Jimmy.
No, that's all right. I was going to say, it was, we pretty much floated the till for, I want to say, the first 9 to 12 months of the league. It wasn't actually making any money, but because we were sort of seeing, a bit of growth, we thought we'll just keep at it, and we'll get it to a point where it's actually paying for itself to operate. And it's quite stressful, going through that when you're just chucking dollars at it, and you're sort of hoping for the best. And I think that also drives you as well to make sure it succeeds. But
yes, when you've got your own money involved in it, and you just got to be willing to accept that you might not ever get that back. That sort of drives you a bit more, and I can see and understand why a lot of them fall over in that space. Because it's easy to just go, what, I've just burnt $500 on all this, and it's just not doing it, so we'll just give it up. The
amount of expense actually involved.
Well, let's get into that, because I think when you, having been involved in a few leagues, you see a bit of a disconnect between the driver that needs to stump up the entry fee, and then his or her expectation is what they're going to receive back from that. But you could probably just rattle off a few things. Obviously broadcast is probably one of the biggest drains on
you've got your broadcasters, your commentators,
race control,
RC guys, safety car drivers, and people that are included.
Server time too.
Server time.
As well. It all adds up, especially when you're living in humble old Australia and you're having to pay for everything in American dollars. Very, very quickly doubles, but
because it's an interesting thing that we have sim racing. Like, we did start broad here. Sim racing is a cost. People enter in, and you can participate just as in iRacing. It might just be in the official series, but then we've had this interesting development where the game itself is also now creating opportunities for other people to earn money, whether that be the elite people obviously get money through prize money, but then you also have people that have started up their own broadcasting studios, obviously doing commentary, people that are selling off services for race control, people that are paints, you name it. Everyone's created a spin-off now on iRacing itself, so that would be we call them third party costs. So
Fantastic. That's
yeah,
it's fantastic. Yeah, it's building that economy within this community, and that's what you want to see. You want to see the growth and allow it to be able to sustain jobs. You know, get people in here, get people, you know, working within the industry and having it grow and grow and grow to the point where it can sustain more. And you just, you know, where does it stop? It's obviously the big dream of most people that are involved with this. We want to see it get to a point where it's, you know, that big that most people generally are aware of it. You know, some people aren't even aware of sim racing. It's crazy to think that when you've had so much exposure in relation to other stuff on TV and whatnot, especially during COVID. Yeah, it's a great thing to see that there are people here that are getting amongst it and creating jobs not only for themselves but for other people.
Yep, and this is what I like to do, is talking to these people that are raising that bar, where it's very easy to come in and think it can be a recreation and a game, but you have people that are looking to push it beyond that and into something that is almost a product that attracts eyes and sponsor dollars and everything like that. So I find it really interesting to talk to people that are doing that, and certainly that's you guys, definitely. And you know, okay, so we've had a few failings to start off with. You know, certainly the point that I joined in to participate in the full, I guess it was the full first season. Let's cover off that full first season, because it at least appeared to the outside person or the participant that it was really, really, really successful in terms of big grids, big participation, good coverage. You guys also broke out into like the YouTube market with, like, you were doing, and you still do, a lot of shorts, which was quite unique for a league to be doing that. And I think they were quite popular amongst everyone. So, talk about that experience from we'll get both your perspectives.
Great. Yeah. You know, once we learnt those lessons from the initial individual events that we'd had, we progressed into the first season and promoted it, and it just, it exploded. People were loving it. We were overwhelmed, really, thinking, oh, wow, we need to quickly put systems in place further that can deal with this sort of volume. And we realized what was going to happen. So we moved on through season one with that success, and we progressed into, again, a more formal situation where things are, hopefully better and better and better. Our systems in place now, again, are able to deal with a larger volume. It's very efficient. All the processes are very refined. And we get into season two, and basically a similar circumstance. Everyone loves it. Not long off now into season three.
And what did you remember anything, Jimmy, specifically about season one that,
I remember that everyone absolutely loved it. But for myself, probably we didn't really touch on it that much just before, but one thing I don't think that a lot of people, I was one of them, didn't sort of factor in was the time involvement from the admins to actually make this all work. And we had Rick and I, we've been at each other's throat a couple of times and given each other shit, but that's all part of a partnership. And we both know where we stand with one another, and we can do that without it getting out of control. But if I look through my phone log history, I'd suggest that since we started this, there's, if not one, at least two calls a day on the phone, just spitballing ideas or working out what we're doing or where we're going or what we've got to do, and meetings with the commentators, the broadcasters, the race controllers, the safety car drivers. There's so much behind it, and by the end of the season, we were both getting pretty burnt out by it. But then, like I said it was after our first season, I reckon, like we were pretty gassed from it. But seeing the reactions from all the guys who competed in it. And so, yeah, that was like awesome, and all the rest of it. That sort of did make it a bit easier to, and at that time could sort of look back at it rather than being so tunnel vision on getting it running and making sure it went smoothly. So,
spurred us on a little bit, kept us going.
Yeah. Because you run, certainly when a customer, so me, the customer, looking through like Discord and things, you run it very streamlined where Ricky's doing a lot of the communication and most people are aware that Jimmy's there assisting. But let's talk about how we had the standalone races there at the start. What did the admin team look like at that point in time? Was it just yourselves? And then how did that expand into season 1? Because I imagine going off a lot of what Ricky was saying about how underprepared you were with those first couple of races, it probably involved swelling that admin team to help you get into the actual first successful season.
A very long and complicated story, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, maybe just start with the size of the team.
Jimmy, do you want to take this one?
Oh, there was me, Rick, and one of the other boys. I don't know whether I should name him or not.
You don't have to.
But no. So he'll know who he is. And at the when we were trying to get the 10-hour going, I was actually off work, I reckon, at that time, and just sinking every spare minute of my day into it. And Rick was doing the same, and we were all sort of pushing it, but nothing. We just weren't getting any traction with anything. And I'll wear it because it was more me. It was the other fella sort of probably was a bit time poor, and I got frustrated with it, but it felt like I was sinking 10 to 14 hours a day, like with advertising and trying to make posters and working all this stuff out. And like Rick was giving us a hand with it as well, but we just weren't getting anywhere with it. And then we sort of, to an extent, sort of parted ways with the other lad. And then it was just Rick and I. But we've gotten to a point as we've gone where the success of it, we sort of pretty quickly realised that we need, not with the bulk of the stuff, but just the little bits we needed assistance with. So we had one of the drivers, like, we outsourced a lot of stuff. So
it's very important for time management and efficiency. Because if you try and overwhelm yourself, it's
we just didn't have time.
Yeah,
and
you have a look around.
You end up resenting doing it.
Yeah, 100%.
I would love to be able to outsource the editing of this podcast, for example.
Well, I mean, I edit all the reels together, and to make, sort of 11 minutes of video takes about 3.5 hours by the time you've found it, clipped it, and cut it. So I feel your pain. I know how that goes. But we just. There's the beauty of there's plenty of blokes in there that are willing to give us a hand with stuff if we do need it. And I think they also know that if we're asking them, it's because we need them. It's not just for shits and giggles that we ask them to do stuff. So, but making round posters, and Bon's done a sensational job with the end of the round, the podium finishes. Posters that have just started for GT4.
Lease as well. Lease McClellan.
All those little things. Yeah. All those little things, they add up to hours hours of stuff that Rick and myself don't have to do so we can focus on the other stuff.
Well, that's it. We're managing the whole lot. And again, I think people will probably be surprised just how extensive it can be and how much there is to do. And again, it comes back to one of the things that is part of our initial, research, and, you hear this a lot lately, but it's all about long-term sustainability. Whatever you put in place must be capable of withstanding the time. And this includes...
Add into that as well that we both have full-time jobs and kids.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
to try and
And you
squeeze
need to
into
make
that
sure, that everything, that all the processes involved and things like that, pre-race, post-race, whatever, is being dealt with in the most efficient way possible. And a lot of the times you have to get to the point where you have to outsource stuff. And you're still overseeing it. And this is the thing. It still costs you a lot of your time, but it's a little bit less,
Yeah.
a little bit less stress.
And you mentioned the role, how important social media and everything is in terms of getting that recognition for the series and the participation
Huge.
up. So you have a lot of guys that did maybe after the first season come to you and say, hey, I'd be interested in helping you out, or did you have to sort of seek them out?
No, I think
Don't.
the pair of us pretty much leaned on sort of our closer friends that are within the league to give us a hand. Probably
When we
stubbornness on
compensate them
both
for
of
their
us.
time,
Yeah, we
and
do.
things
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. Yeah,
It's probably
They're,
stubbornness on our part that we waited as long as we did to do it. But
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as we go along here, then by
there's
all
not
means.
much really. Most of it is all ourselves.
Yep.
But yeah, things like the trophies, a lot of the posters, other bits and pieces in between. Most of it, is again ourselves. But yeah, without these other guys, it's almost impossible. And unless you're going to have a 5 or 6 man admin team, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
And we found it just doesn't work. That's how things break down.
Yep. Yeah. You're managing the more admin can definitely be helpful, but it can also be more politics, as I'm sure you guys
Yeah.
really well
definitely
aware.
muddy the water. Yeah.
Okay. So awesome. So really, really successful first season. Moving into sort of the second season and your plans and your goals for what the league could be sort of had a big skyrocket. The introduction of the GT4 series come in, and there was also ventures into running the league overseas, which is, I mean, I'm not across everything, but it might be a first for me to know that there's been a sort of an Australian league, then try and place a series also in Europe, I believe it was, or UK. So
yes,
talk about like the build up to launching that series and how the idea come about, and we'll go on from there.
It's a bit of a sad story, really. Coming off the amount of hype from season 1, our first round was shaping up to be massive. I can't recall the amount of cars that were on the grid. I'm pretty sure it was probably 50 plus. I remember, was it?
50, yeah, 55, I reckon I was. Yeah.
So the 55 car grid, GT3 Australia?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
Yep.
But we had a couple of blokes from Europe racing in our league here.
Mhm.
So we, Rick, you can take it.
Yeah. Well, look, initially, like with GT3 Australia, as a lot of you people are aware, we had a failure with our broadcasts. There were issues with SDK, which unfortunately was related to the league itself within iRacing, which was unable to be corrected. So we were basically to the point where, we couldn't work out the issue at that time, and we tried a few things, and we thought we had a right, and we had 2 of them fail. And now with the round 1, that was a massive hit for us. That had a ripple effect that goes, again, far beyond what most people would realise, and that was a massive kick in the guts. But we managed to pull it all together and do what we could in regards to highlights videos and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Getting our crew to sort out what they could for the boys. And season 2 eventually was fine. At the same time, we decided to release the UK series. We'd had, again, like Jimmy mentioned, a few people that were racing from the European region. And a couple in particular, they expressed, their interest in having this overseas. And as a lot of people are aware, our ambitions from the beginning had been to spread as an international league. So we thought, well, this could be a great opportunity to establish something. We we were under the impression circumstances were different as we were going into it. And unfortunately, due to, many contributing factors, it just wasn't successful. I feel that we weren't mobilised enough and in the right way, to make it happen. It was probably a bit premature, also probably on my side. Jimmy did initially advise against it, but once we had received the information we thought was, verifying what we thought we could achieve, we proceeded forward, and then obviously, not successful. So 2 rounds into the season, after, many attempts to try and resolve everything, we decided to tell all the competitors.
We had to pull the pin.
We pulled the pin, and it is what it is. We go back and have a go another day. It was a great experience for us, and it taught us a lot, especially in regards to how different the environment is over there within the sim racing community.
Well,
it is,
Yeah, and that's I asked the question not to try and uncover painful events for you guys, but it's like, this is the thing. It's you're trying to move it into unexplored territory, and whether it be leagues or other things, quite often there's setbacks before you actually succeed, and I think that's sort of the theme of the conversation.
I think it was Nicky Lauder actually that said you learn more from your failures than you do from your victories, and that's pretty concise and accurate, I think, for us.
And like, I think you guys have the determination to succeed that'll sustain those setbacks. So, backing your series, and whether you do reform and go again, it's a good attitude towards it. And, you can see that these are the traits that maybe are missing from other startup leagues that see them crash and burn at the first attempt.
Yeah. You just, resilience is one that you need to have to do it. You got
tenacity.
You've got to love sim racing as well, because if you're only sort of half in, half out with it, you're definitely not gonna go far, because you need the passion,
Yeah, you gotta have the need to want to bring this to the sim racing community. There's people out there sometimes that have got their interests in the wrong place, and that can be another reason why they fail. There's a balance to be struck with everything, and we feel that sometimes they just don't quite get that right for whatever reason. But you've really got to enjoy it, and be genuinely wanting to see the sim racing community in Australia and elsewhere grow again. Become something that can sustain jobs and things like that, and see more leagues.
Mm-hmm.
Want to see these guys, do their things. And there are a lot of lessons to be learned. Unfortunately, it will take time, and not everyone will succeed. I wish best of luck.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think I've got one more question, just as a bit of a brain picky thing for anyone that is thinking about starting leagues.
There's not much of a brain to pick on, Rick. I'll do my best.
I think we might just end it on a lighter note and look forward to the launch of the GT3 season. Like, one thing that certainly Rick is got in the industry that I work in, we call them soft skills, and that's the ability to sort of handle conflict, or let's just say how you go about handling aggravated drivers. So, as a league admin, I mean, you guys you've put things in place where you haven't, certainly in the past, an independent race control from yourself, but that never always makes the drivers just not aim up on you guys as well regarding race decisions and things like that. But talk a little bit about how is those soft skills, Rick and Jimmy, if you're doing this as well, talking to these guys, all these drivers, those soft skills, is that they always been with you, or is that something that you've learned from these 3 or 4 seasons where maybe you weren't handling it as well in the beginning, but now you've formulated a method? Because, that is a huge part of ensuring that your league stays successful. I suppose, if drivers feel like they're getting heard about their concerns, and let's face it, most people have got differing opinions on one incident. Like, it's not always going to be black and white, but yeah, I guess talk a little bit about how you might have evolved in that sense when it comes to handling that type of conflict.
I think we've been pretty much the same the whole way through it. We sort of flip and turn, like with a good cop, get bad cop routine, because I'll get absolutely infuriated by something, and Rick will do the same. And the first person we go to about it is each other.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's our business. And it's usually one or the other of us, we're either de-escalating the other one or vice versa.
Look,
ultimately, we just wanted something that we both wanted to be in. Well, that we both, if we weren't running this league, this is a league that we'd want to be part of, and we just sort of keep going with that. But I think Rick's probably got the diplomacy thing a bit better than me. I think that's probably the extra 5 or 6 years that I've got on him, and my tolerance is a little bit slimmer than his might be. But yeah. It's definitely a 2-man operation to handle a lot of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, you're right. It really is. And I think too many can make it harder as well. Excuse me. Look, with this, my theory is, if you are having to address, mediate, or, discipline drivers often, regularly, you're probably not doing your job right to start with. Yeah.
Well, and you're also not putting the right people in the right place to manage all that is probably the other key.
As you're aware, our social media rule set is pretty stringent. There are things in place that minimize this sort of occurrence, whether it be on track or off track.
Yeah.
On track, they're under very strict instructions. The radio is only for communicating with RC or to show courtesy to another driver. A thank you, I'm left, I'm right. Whatever's necessary to convey that information is fine. Being minimalistic, again, allowing them to do their job efficiently, because tying up the radio channels is something we don't want. Language, other types of behavior that unfortunately we have encountered once, in the past, that's strictly zero tolerance. There is no, leeway with regards to that, and they all know that. And it's conveyed in a way where we like to think that we gain their respect. It's firm, but it is fair, and we will always make sure that it's like that. And these guys, they feel that, and they know that, and they respond to that well, and they show the respect to us and to the other drivers. In regards to the off-track stuff, that is something that, again, is a major thing in regards to leagues having fallout within. It needs to be addressed straight away. All our social media stuff is heavily monitored, very closely monitored. We're aware of everything that's going on. If we're not, we very soon will be. And there are things in place to, again, rules and other things in place that do it. Make sure that these guys don't get themselves into any of those situations. Debates and all that sort of stuff, and arguments and things. They're not for the general chat areas and things like that. They can do that in their own direct channel between themselves if they want to get in a heated debate or something. So in regards to the approach, I've always myself personally, I don't think I've ever had a drama in the past with dealing with any of it. It can be difficult at times because you do want to, again, make sure that you're making the best decisions at the time and things like that, and making sure that everything's fair and logical in regards to the overall goal that you're trying to achieve. And look, again, these guys, I like to think that we're one of the leagues out there that are probably more fortunate than others. they're pretty good on track and they're pretty good off track.
Yeah.
There hasn't been too many times that we've had to step in.
You kind of done the hardest part, which is I think you created an environment or a culture with the core-based drivers. They know all about the tolerances and the expectations, and now you're really dealing with probably your new drivers or your extreme circumstances, and now your drivers that are giving you those types of things, those types of problems. So you've got a good core base of drivers there that really know how to toe the line.
That's one thing we've actually had discussions about how lucky we are in that regard. There's been, there's no one's not seen anyone intentionally binning others, and like so many leagues they fall over from people driving like dickheads, for lack of a better word, and it ruins the experience for everyone. But all our guys, they all race hard, but they all race fair, and occasionally you get one that's not agreeing with a decision that's gone against them, but that's pretty rare that that's going on. So yeah, we're very fortunate in that regard.
Okay. Yeah, well that's pretty good summary of that. We can move into probably something a bit more lighthearted now, I would say. But I just find it like there's, when you take up these types of roles, there's a lot of there's little glory, and there's a lot of
pain,
contentious things that you do deal with, which we're talking about a sim or some people a game, and you're dealing with all these things, which would be a rather skilled person in the workforce that deals with all these types of conflict resolution and planning and management of other people, and so there's a lot more to it. Like as you've alluded to the whole way through, there's a lot more to it, and it's good, at least a good opportunity to come on and hopefully, like especially if there's any guys that are listening back from within the league, that they can get a bit better understanding of the picture's been painted a little bit more detailed as to what you guys are doing to get them on track each week. So definitely appreciate jumping on and giving us that insight. But let's look forward now to maybe give us a little bit of a rundown from the GT4 race last weekend. To clue you guys in, I'm on the podcast. These types of interviews are going to make up to 3/4 of the podcast, and then before we get into each interview each week, I've been doing some race recaps. So mainly so far has just been focusing on the V8 leagues, which a couple of them have started up, but obviously the Premier Endurance League, the GT3 side of things, is going to be included in those race recaps. So guys will be able to jump on, and one of the main reasons that I look forward to doing that is it's going to give us some different names to follow along with. So if you give us a little bit of a race recap from the GT4, certainly mention the on-track battle that you two.
we had that until Rick ran me off the road.
Oh. Yeah. But let's just start there, and we'll build on. On that.
And mate, we all saw the video.
Yeah. So
no,
you do have the YouTube shorts up from this battle as well.
That wasn't my decision. Okay. There's only one I wanted to put up. He put 3, but anyway, go on.
It was a good battle.
It was, yeah.
And I may not ever get that chance ever again. No, Rick copped it for that. I couldn't even get past Jimmy. What's wrong with you? Yeah. No, it was a good race, good turnout, and I mean, what do we have? Coleman, Magri, and Dutchy finished on the podium. Magri led it for quite a bit. It's actually the one thing you don't realise. I think you do need to watch the replay afterwards to sort of actually see what happened in and around you, because you're so sort of focused on. Well, I mean, for me anyway, not putting it in the wall or in the dirt. But they look like they had a ding dong battle. I think Owen probably just managed to manage his fuel a bit better and gave himself a bit of breathing space in the second spin. Rick and I had a cracking battle for, I don't know how many laps we were following. It always feels like it's 10 or 15 laps, but it was probably only 3 or 4.
And so this was at Magello.
Magello.
So that's
Yeah.
quite a
Cracking track.
cracking track, but a long lap as well. So I can imagine why in a GT4 it would feel like it went on for 10 laps.
Yeah, well, see, I have the same thing with the GT3, though, Dino. So when you drive as slow as I do, they're all long laps.
It was good. There was a lot of battles.
It was heaps of battles. Yeah.
Even Sam Chapman, I believe it was, he really showed a lot of good pace, and I believe that he'll be making his way, towards the pointy end at some point. Marty Hallahan, I think, had some bad luck. I think I remember seeing him at the back, unfortunately. He's normally up, at least within the top 10. He's pretty quick.
I know you'll be incredibly embarrassed, but we need to mention Gretschy.
Poor Gretschy.
running out of fuel at the last corner.
Literally
The last corner, and he didn't make it to the line. So I think he went from I reckon he went from like 11th and ended up 22nd or something, the poor bugger.
And I've seen
it's critical, mate. You have to manage the fuel.
No one offered him a push over the line.
No, I was like, well, he's a free spot. I need all the help I can get. So I took it.
Fair enough, too. Fair enough. And that certainly was the main takeaway that I had, that, changes to the fuel restrictions in the car certainly made it. It looks like it's a real fuel, like a fuel strategy type race that went on the weekend. So,
that 5% made a big difference in a way, especially without the safety car, which was the main thing, really. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that'll change depending on what track we go to as well, because Magello was, you lost about a minute in the pits there, so you had to be clever about how you were doing it. Your other tracks, you're not going to lose as much time. Others, you might lose more, so it does become critical. And I reckon it's the Porsche, actually. It's got quite a small tank in it as well, so
yep.
It definitely pays to go actually practice and put race stints in so that you've got an idea of where you're at, because you can't just go flat out the whole way through it.
Yes,
you got to be sort of cunning about it.
Yeah, there is some management involved, even with this. Obviously, now with the fuel being restricted further, it's even more critical, especially if you don't get that safety car, like what we've seen happen in the last round.
Yeah.
A lot of the boys were a bit muddled up. You normally see a few names here and there, and they had some incidents and whatnot, or just didn't have the pace. Like, you look at Benny Jeffrey. I think he didn't get a lot of time to practice. He came in and he managed to grab 7th, I believe. I think was at the end. But he was struggling. Nick Wood, I think, was in the same boat. Mark Foster,
McLaren.
Yeah, well, that's probably the main thing there.
It's wants to make life difficult for himself.
Yeah. So Owen Coleman takes the win from Dan Magri, and third place was Andrew Dutch.
Andrew Dutch.
Yeah. Okay. So, but that's good, because again, we're just tracking some names here that will probably come up again. As we do talk about the series each week. Let's look forward to the
Coleman's just in a thick vein of form at the moment with the GT4.
Yes.
He's really well suited. I mean, he's quick in anything he drives, but
can you ban him from the Mercedes?
Because he's my teammate this season, and I was trying with every fibre of my being to get him to drive something different. But no, I like my Mercedes.
I think he only owns the Mercedes GT3 and GT4.
I can assure you, he owns them all, because he goes out and does 3 laps and says, "No, that's not as fast." And I'm like, come on, mate. You might need to do a few more laps and put a setup in it.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's so we've had a couple of series now. So season 1 was Ben Jeffrey was the champion, I believe, going back, if memory serves me correctly.
Yep.
And it was Nick Wood won. Nick Wood win last season?
He did, yeah. He was in red hot form all through the season.
Yep. So
Yep.
so the GT3 will go to Mugello as well for the 2-hour endurance race. Those guys are coming back again. Some of the other guys or other names that you guys feel like might be up there for the series. Say let's give us a few names that might contend for the championship, and then a few maybe some surprise guys that you guys might have noticed from a few practice sessions.
I mean, Nick Wood's always going to feature, and Coleman again. He finished second in the GT3s last season.
Ben Jeffrey.
Benny Jeffrey.
Adam Jepson.
Scalzi might. He's usually pretty reliable. Yeah.
Yep.
And again, Dutch. I mean, there'll be a few of the familiar faces at the front because they're just generally quick. So
There are a couple of new guys
yeah,
that we feel might mix it up with them, especially Stuart Shaw.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a new guy we've got coming. Yeah, I've noticed some pace from him. We're still yet to have the official practice sessions for GT3. So we'll see a clearer image then of who's doing what they're doing. But I think, there will be a couple of guys potentially. Can't recall the other one. But they'll be up there. Even people like Ru Kustra, he's showed some spontaneous pace here and there. You know, you might find that I don't know if you'll be able to be as strong as the other guys. I hope so, but you might find there's a round or two where his pace is definitely up there amongst the top 5 at least. He's got some capability.
It seems to me that he's limited by his car choice. Is he still driving the McLaren?
I'm not gonna say anything.
I think he drove the Porsche for a bit last season as well, and it's like, mate, you're just a sucker for punishment, aren't you? Yeah, we don't make a.
Yeah. There's still some good balance of performance that needs to occur on some of these cars in the GT3, but hopefully we just get an updated McLaren full stop. That would be that'd be a better.
That'd be nice. I know that Mark Foster would be torn if that happened because he's just stepped out of the McLaren for the first time and he's into a Porsche now. I'm actually quite happy that they tweaked the Ferrari and bumped the torque up on that a bit. So I'm looking forward to getting into that again.
And what about yourself, Rick? What are you running this season?
I know everyone's going to give me a bit of black for it, but
I'll bring the boring motor wagon. Yeah.
Is it the BMW? Did you say
BMW? Yeah,
I think it's aka the Euro Camry. I think it's called in the
the boring motor wagon.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let's finish off then. Maybe give a shout out to the series sponsors, and then where people can look to find the broadcast for round 1 that is going to be coming up. It'll be a few days after this podcast is released, so I'll make sure that I do tag it in the show notes as well. But give all your sponsors a shout out, and then we'll probably wrap it up because I think we'll be pretty much on the hour.
Yeah, easy. Oh, well, look, obviously,
direct, obviously.
You're going. Sorry, go
and get direct. Catch up with Blake for all your stimulation needs. He'll look after you. Tell him we sent you. He's a top bloke, and all the gear he's got there is sensational.
You cut out, Jimmy.
Did I? Am I back?
Yeah, I've got you.
Yeah. All these probably Rick. Yeah, got the golf sims and everything in that shop. So it's when I win the Powerball tomorrow night, I'll be getting myself a golf sim to go with my race sim.
Yeah, and obviously, Gaming Gear Direct has the title sponsor for the GT3 series as well.
And the GT4. Yeah.
And the GT4 as well. Okay, so they've been pretty good to you guys over the last couple of seasons, haven't they?
Oh, Blake's fantastic.
He's awesome.
Great. Yeah, great guy to deal with. Wonderful, person in general, and the business, still represents that. Definitely, have everything you need. Make sure you hit them up and go and have a bit of a look through the website and whatnot. But yeah, we'd also like to think. I'd like to thank Pred Racer as well, just coming on with us now. A new addition with Simon helping us out, and forming a partnership with him now. We've got Sudspeed on board as well, and also John Scott Motors. Sudspeed, a lot of us already know who they are. They're a great bunch of guys, Richard Mayer and Chris Ruddle. They've got a prototype series that they run, and also obviously they've got their apparel, their gloves that they sell.
Yep. They announced today it was going to be an LMP2 series, I think, coming up for
yes, they did. Yes,
moving up from the LMP3. That was one that I sort of was tempted by last year, but just didn't have time for.
Yeah, all of us in a similar boat, actually. Great bunch of guys there, and their products are all able to be accessed through our channels. You'll see that they're in our Discord, on our Facebook. Definitely head to their website and Facebooks and Discords and whatnot as well, and check everything out. Again, great bunch of guys, and they'll be happy to look after you. Their gloves are really, very good quality and at a pretty reasonable price, in comparison to other things that are out there. I know that there are other things on the horizon that got in place, and they're in pretty cool. Definitely have a look. So really, want to thank those guys as well, and also at John Scott Motors, Kosher, a good mate of mine, known for a long time through my work. And he was very excited about what we were doing, and really wanted to come on board and that. And we said, "Oh, that's great." So we have a bit of a partnership with them as well. If you're in the northern Sydney area or anywhere in the Sydney region, check them out. John Scott Motors. They're in the Ryde area from memory. We really appreciate everyone's help.
Could not do it without them.
Partnerships. We honestly just could not do it. It would not happen. It's fantastic to have that sort of support.
And most importantly, head over to our YouTube channel, Premier Endurance League.
And make sure you subscribe.
And you can subscribe and like, and you can have a look at Rick running people off the road.
All right. Well, guys, I really appreciate you just coming on and giving this a chance and having a chat. And, as the season progresses, it would be definitely cool to get you guys back in, whether it's just before, maybe the last round, especially if there's a tight battle going on for the championship, and maybe we can do a bit of an episode on how the season's gone and really tip it in towards the end of the year there. So, once again, just appreciate it and thanks very much.
Not a problem.
No worries, Dino. Cheers, mate.
And that is it for today's podcast. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Rick Provenzale and Jimmy Middleton. A couple of characters there in the Australian iRacing community, which we are better off for having them around. So thanks for your time, fellas. And that'll do it for this week's podcast. If you did enjoy the show and you're not subscribed, definitely head on to the Facebook page. You'll find links through to Spotify, links to the RSS feed if you don't have Spotify, but also we're pending some last minute sort of verification with YouTube, so it'll be coming out via YouTube shortly. And you can also jump onto the simracinginfocus.blog website, where you can sign up for the newsletter to be alerted whenever a new podcast comes out. A little bit of an update regarding the podcast. We don't have a set date. We are just trying to release the podcast within the iRacing week each week, but it should hopefully be around about a Wednesday or Thursday each week. So that's pretty much all I've got for you tonight. It's bye for now.